What if I told you that everything you believe in, your values, your morals, your very sense of purpose, is already dead? Imagine waking up one day to discover that the foundation of your world, the meaning you've clung to, is nothing but an illusion. The sense of justice, of truth, of something greater guiding us all vanished into a vast, empty abyss. No divine plan, no eternal meaning, just nothing. This isn't a horror story. It's the unsettling reality that a German philosopher warned us about back in 1882. Friedrich Nietzsche, a man whose ideas still shake us today, declared something so bold, so disturbing, it echoed through the century. God is dead. These 3 words weren't meant as celebration, nor as a simple attack on religion. They were a chilling warning, because Nietzsche wasn't just talking about religion, he was talking about the collapse of meaning itself. For centuries, humanity had built its entire existence on a shared belief in a divine order. Right and wrong were dictated by sacred texts. Life had an ultimate purpose given by God. But what happens when that foundation crumbles? When the guiding light we depended on disappears? Nietzsche believed we were entering an age where faith in God was fading, not because science had disproved him, but because we no longer needed him. We killed God ourselves through reason, skepticism and modernity. And here lies the terrifying truth. If God is dead, then everything built on him, morality, purpose, justice, collapses too. Suddenly, we are adrift in a world without meaning, stranded without compass or direction. This is why Nietzsche's proclamation was not triumph but a warning. He foresaw a future where humanity, unable to handle this void, would fall into nihilism, a bleak world where nothing mattered. People would either sink under the weight of existential despair, or desperately scramble for new beliefs, any meaning to fill the void left behind. Today, this prophecy feels more urgent than ever. In a world flooded with confusion, isolation, and despair, are we still trapped in Nietzsche's nightmare? Is this loss of faith the root of the emptiness many feel? And if so, is there a way out? Let's take a step back. Picture 19th century Germany, a world in upheaval. Factories roar, science challenges ancient traditions, and philosophy questions everything we held sacred. In a dimly lit room, Friedrich Nietzsche sits, pen in hand, wrestling with ideas that will shake humanity's core. When he wrote God is Dead, he knew he was confronting a terrifying possibility. But Nietzsche didn't stop there. He urged us not to despair, but to confront the void with courage. Without God, we have the freedom and the burden to create our own meaning, to define our own morality, to be architects of our own destiny. This is no easy path. Without the safety net of a divine order, we face the chaos of uncertainty. But it's also an opportunity, an invitation to become more than followers of old truths, to become creators of new values, forging purpose from the ashes of the old. Nietzsche's challenge to us is profound. Will we succumb to nihilism, the abyss of meaninglessness, or will we rise and redefine what it means to live authentically in a world without God? This shift from blind faith to brave creation is the ultimate test of humanity. Because the death of old certainties doesn't have to be the death of meaning. It can be the birth of something new. So, what will you choose? To live shackled by the ghosts of vanished gods, or to seize the freedom and responsibility to build your own purpose, your own truth? This is the crossroads Nietzsche set before us more than a century ago. The question remains the same. How will you answer it? What Nietzsche had just written wasn't merely a statement, it was a bomb, set to explode through the world's understanding. He knew these words would ignite fierce debates, challenge centuries of belief, and change the course of human thought forever. To truly grasp why Nietzsche declared God is dead, we must step back into his world, a Europe torn by upheaval and transformation. The late 19th century was a time when old certainties were crumbling. Science was dismantling myths once considered sacred. Darwin's theory of evolution shook the foundation of humanity's divine origin. The Industrial Revolution was reshaping society into a relentless machine of progress and mechanization. Faith, which had been the pulse of civilization for millennia, was fading fast. Religion, long the source of morality, purpose, and ultimate truth, was being questioned as doubt spread like wildfire. People began to find explanations for life that didn't rely on a divine creator. Society was evolving beyond the rigid moral codes dictated by ancient scriptures. Nietzsche saw what few dared to admit: the world no longer needed God. But this realization was not a cause for celebration. It was a crisis. Nietzsche wasn't an atheist in the way we think of today. He wasn't simply rejecting God. He was mourning the loss. Imagine a child discovering that Santa Claus isn't real. The shock, the sense of betrayal, the sudden emptiness. Now, imagine feeling that loss, not once, but multiplied 1,000 times. That was Nietzsche's vision for humanity. He didn't claim God never existed. Instead, he said humanity killed God through its own progress, through reason, skepticism, and scientific advancement. And by doing so, we have left ourselves stranded, without a moral compass, without ultimate truths, without meaning. Nietzsche saw himself as a prophet shouting into a void, desperately warning humanity of the disaster ahead. Without God, he predicted, society would spiral into nihilism, a world where nothing holds meaning. People would try to replace religion with blind consumerism, political fanaticism, or shallow pleasures, desperately filling the void. Here's the heartbreaking truth. Nietzsche didn't just predict this crisis, he lived it. A man far ahead of his time. He spent his last years in solitude, misunderstood, and battling illness and madness. Burdened with knowledge too heavy for his era, he was ridiculed during his life, even as his words went on to inspire generations. Imagine the frustration of knowing a truth so dangerous, so profound, while watching society blindly march toward its own unraveling. Nietzsche was that lone voice in the dark, and as he penned "God is dead," he understood history had changed forever. Now think about the psychological impact of those words. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a vast, endless abyss. You peer down, hoping for some ground, some light, some guidance, but there's nothing. Just emptiness. No direction, no voice to lead you, no meaning beneath your feet. Now imagine that abyss is inside your mind. For centuries, religion served as a bridge over that void. It offered a sense of security, order, and meaning, a way to navigate life's chaos. Without it, the void is exposed, raw, and terrifying. This emptiness is what Nietzsche warned us of. Without a framework to give life meaning, we face the temptation to despair, or to seek false refuge. Yet, Nietzsche's message wasn't one of defeat. It was a call to courage. He challenged us to face this void head-on, to reject nihilism, and create our own value, to become creators of meaning in a world stripped of old certainty. The death of God is not the death of meaning. It's a terrifying but liberating opportunity to redefine our purpose and live authentic. Will we cower before the abyss, or will we rise, brave and free, to shape our own destiny? Nietzsche's prophecy echoes through time, asking each of us, how will you confront the emptiness? How will you choose to live when the old gods have fallen? For centuries, religion acted as humanity's safety net. It gave us purpose, defined right and wrong, and promised that no matter how chaotic life seemed, there was a deeper meaning, a divine plan, a higher purpose, guiding everything. But then Nietzsche came along, and tore that safety net away. The question that followed was haunting. What happens to a mind when everything it once believed in suddenly vanishes? Today psychologists call this an existential crisis, a moment when all your beliefs, your morals, your purpose, collapse before your eyes. It's a breakdown that can shatter a person's entire worldview. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. When he declared God is dead, he wasn't merely challenging religion. He was pointing to the collapse of a whole psychological framework. Without God, there's no ultimate justice, no cosmic plan, no promise that life holds any inherent meaning. And here lies the terrifying truth. Most people aren't ready for this kind of freedom. At first glance, a world without God might seem liberating. No rules, no divine judgment, just pure, unrestricted freedom. But freedom without direction is like drifting aimlessly in a vast ocean without a map. For many, this realization is overwhelming. Without a higher power to define morality, who decides what's right or wrong? Without a divine plan, what's the point of suffering? Without the promise of an afterlife, why does anything matter at all? This isn't some abstract philosophical dilemma. It's a psychological nightmare. In Nietzsche's time, people still clung to fading remnants of religion. But today, we live fully in the world he foresaw, a world where traditional beliefs are dissolving, and millions are left to navigate meaning on their own. Depression, anxiety, and nihilism are at an all-time high. More people than ever feel lost, disconnected, and without purpose. Perhaps it's because we have killed the very thing that once gave life meaning. But here's the twist. Nietzsche never said humanity could live without meaning. He knew that if people abandoned God, they wouldn't simply accept emptiness. They would seek to replace it with something else. And that's exactly what happened. Some turned to political ideologies, treating them with the same blind faith once reserved for religion. Others dived headfirst into materialism, believing that wealth, status, or possessions could fill the void. Then there are those who chase pleasure relentlessly, constant entertainment, distractions, anything to avoid confronting the emptiness inside. Yet, deep down, none of this truly satisfies. The feeling of emptiness lingers, because meaning isn't like a broken light bulb you can just swap out. It has to be rebuilt from the ground up. Nietzsche believed that only a rare kind of person could do this, a person strong enough to stare into the abyss without breaking, someone who refuses to crumble in despair and instead creates their own purpose. He called this person the Uberman, or Superman. But how does one become that? And more important, can you? The dangerous truth of a godless world is that it demands courage to face the void and not retreat. It challenges us to become architects of our own values, to craft meaning in a universe that offers none inherent. This is no easy task. It requires resilience, self-awareness, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. The death of God is not the end. It's a call to awake, to forge a path where none exists, to build purpose where once was emptiness. It's an invitation to step beyond inherited beliefs and become creators of our own destiny. So the next time you feel lost, overwhelmed by the void, remember this: meaning is not given, it is made, and within you lies the power to build it. The question is, will you face the abyss and create your own purpose, or will you let the darkness consume you? Imagine a world without limits, no divine laws, no absolute morality, no cosmic justice. What would stop someone from lying, stealing, or even killing, if there were no higher power watching, no heaven to reward virtue, and no hell to punish wrongdoing? If there's no ultimate judge, then why bother being good at all? This is the haunting question Nietzsche forced us to face when he declared, God is dead. He wasn't celebrating liberation, he was sounding an alarm. He foresaw a future where humanity, freed from religious constraints, might lose its grip on what is right and wrong. History has shown us just how dark that world can become. One of the biggest misunderstandings about Nietzsche is that he was simply an anti-religion rebel, someone declaring God doesn't exist, so people can do whatever they want. But that's not what he meant. He wasn't just criticizing religion, he was pointing to the collapse of the entire moral framework that religion had built over millennia. For centuries, societies based their laws, justice systems, and ethical values on religious ideas: justice, compassion, sin, virtue. These principles weren't just spiritual concepts, they were the foundation of civilization itself. Even today, many who reject religion still live by moral codes shaped by religious history. Nietzsche understood that once religion was cast aside, people wouldn't just abandon God, they would abandon the moral order that came with him. And that's when things get dangerous. When belief in a higher power fades, not everyone becomes enlightened. Instead, many fall into nihilism, the belief that life has no meaning, morality is a fiction, and nothing really matters. And from that void emerges something even more terrifying: power. Without absolute right or wrong, morality becomes whatever those in power say it is. Nietzsche feared that in a godless world, people wouldn't seek truth or purpose. They would seek domination. The strong would rule the weak, imposing their will unchecked. Morality would become a tool for those who hold power, twisted to justify oppression. This wasn't just philosophy. History has already shown us the horrific results when power replaces principle. Nietzsche's complex ideas were misunderstood and manipulated by those with sinister intentions. The most notorious example: Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime. Hitler twisted Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or Superman, into a doctrine of racial superiority and ruthless dominance. Nietzsche's original vision was about transcending outdated moral codes to create new values, but the Nazis warped it into a justification for might makes right. They claimed power was the ultimate truth, and that morality was whatever they decreed it to be. Nietzsche would have been horrified. He despised nationalism, blind obedience, and the herd mentality that allowed people to follow authority without question. His philosophy was never meant to justify cruelty. It was a terrifying warning about what happens when people stop thinking for themselves and surrender to groupthink and authoritarianism. A world without absolute moral anchors is not a playground for chaos, it's a battlefield for power. The collapse of divine morality doesn't automatically lead to freedom. It can lead to domination, manipulation, and suffering on an unimaginable scale. Without a shared sense of right and wrong, society risks descending into a brutal struggle where might decides what's true and just. So what does this mean for us today? Nietzsche's warning is as urgent as ever. In a world where traditional beliefs are fading and relativism reigns, we must be vigilant. We need to recognize the danger of power without principle and resist the temptation to surrender our moral compass. The challenge is to create new values that aren't based on dogma or oppression, but on reason, empathy, and respect for human dignity. To be conscious thinkers in a world where old certainties have died, because if we fail, the dark future Nietzsche foresaw won't just be a warning from the past, it will be our reality. The true challenge Nietzsche posed was the responsibility of creating new meaning in a world stripped of divine laws. The real danger isn't just dictators misusing philosophy, it's a struggle each of us faces every day. We live in the world Nietzsche predicted, a place where religion is fading, where people wrestle with questions of meaning, and where morality is constantly shifting. And here's the hard truth: without a higher power, you become responsible for defining your own moral code. You have to decide what is right and wrong. You have to find purpose in a universe that offers none. That kind of freedom is terrifying. Most people avoid it. They cling to outdated beliefs for comfort, or sink into nihilism, believing life is meaningless and there's no point to anything. But Nietzsche believed there was another way, a harder, braver way to face the abyss head-on and build your own meaning from scratch. How do you create purpose when nothing is given to you? That is the question Nietzsche wanted us to answer. It might just define humanity's future. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, dark abyss. The old world where God gave us meaning, morality, and purpose is gone. Now you stare into the void and ask what comes next. This is the terrifying reality Nietzsche described. Without God, humanity risks falling into nihilism, a state where life feels empty, moral values dissolve, and despair spreads. But here's what most people miss. Nietzsche didn't want us to stay trapped in nihilism. He wasn't merely a critic of religion. He was a philosopher of transformation, and he gave us a way out, a path to create meaning instead of surrendering to meaninglessness. He called it the Übermensch, the Superman. This isn't a comic book hero. The Übermensch is an individual who refuses to depend on external sources for meaning. Instead, they create their own value. They don't blindly accept traditional morals or societal norms. They break down old beliefs that no longer serve them and build a new foundation for their existence. Think of the greatest artists, thinkers, and revolutionaries: Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Steve Jobs. These people didn't accept the world as it was. They redefined it. The Übermensch isn't just about rejecting the past. It's about becoming something greater than you were yesterday. It's about transforming struggle into strength, chaos into creativity, and meaninglessness into purpose. But how do you do that? Nietzsche's answer lies in the concept of the will to power, the driving force behind human existence. He believed life isn't about discovering meaning, it's about creating it. The will to power is the force that pushes us to overcome obstacles, assert control over our lives, and forge our own destiny. It's not about domination over others, but mastery over oneself. It's about becoming the author of your own story, rather than a passive character. The will to power challenges you to embrace your freedom fully, to take responsibility for your beliefs and actions, and to reject anything that holds you back from becoming your true self. In a world without divine guidance, this is the call to rise above nihilism, to confront the abyss without falling into despair, to build your own values and live authentically, no matter how uncertain or difficult the path may be. Nietzsche's message is both a warning and a beacon. The death of God is a crisis, but also an opportunity to reinvent humanity's moral compass, to create meaning from chaos, and to live boldly in a world where meaning must be crafted, not inherited. The question now is this: will you accept the challenge? Will you stare into the abyss and let it consume you? Or will you rise as the Übermensch, crafting your own purpose and defining your own destiny? The future belongs to those who dare to become more than what they were yesterday. The will to power is the force that drives all living beings. It's the deep urge to grow, to improve, to take control of your life rather than be controlled by your circumstances. Every time you face a fear, push past a limit, or bring something new into existence, you're exercising this will to power. But when you shrink away from challenges, let fear steer your decisions, or blindly follow what others say, you're suppressing. The difference between those who thrive and those who struggle isn't intelligence, luck, or resources. It comes down to one thing: whether they embrace the will to power or reject. So how do you put this philosophy into practice? Nietzsche's ideas aren't just abstract theory. They're a guide to living, a roadmap for escaping nihilism and taking charge of your existence. First, stop waiting for meaning to find you. There is no cosmic plan written in the stars, no destiny set in stone. Meaning doesn't exist outside of you. You have to create it. Write your own story. Chase what fires you up. Build something unique. Challenge yourself every day. Second, question everything. Don't accept beliefs just because society says they're true. Ask yourself, do I really believe this, or am I just following the crowd? True growth comes from honest examination, not mindless accept. Third, embrace struggle, pain, hardship, failure. These aren't enemy. They're the fuel that powers growth. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Fourth, break free from the need for approval. The Übermensch, the ideal Nietzsche described, doesn't measure success by what others think. They define their own standard and live by their own rule. Become the architect of your own morality. If the old values don't serve, don't just toss them aside. Replace them with something better, something authentic. Now, the final question: will you rise or fall? Nietzsche's philosophy isn't for the faint-hearted. It's a brutal truth, not a comforting lie. To embrace it means accepting full responsibility for your life. You have two choices: let the abyss swallow you whole, believing life is meaningless and powerless, or step into the unknown, forge your own path and create meaning where there was none. Which will you choose? Most people completely misunderstand Nietzsche's declaration that God is dead. They think he was celebrating atheism, mocking religion, or promoting a world without morality. But that's far from the truth. Nietzsche didn't announce God's death as a victory. He declared it a crisis, a catastrophe, shaking the foundation of human history. He understood that faith in God wasn't just about worship, it was the very base of meaning, morality and purpose for billions. And when that base crumbled, what replaces?
Nothing.
That was Nietzsche's fear, a world slipping into nihilism, where life has no meaning, no purpose, no truth. People would be lost, sinking into despair without a guiding light. Look around today. The struggle of modern humanity is the shadow of that crisis. Depression and anxiety are at record highs. People desperately seek meaning, grasping at social media, consumerism, or rigid ideologies, trying to fill the void left by fading faith. Suicide rates climb, isolation grows, the silence of the abyss echoes louder than ever. This is the world Nietzsche warned us about, a world without anchors, where the old certainties have vanished but new ones haven't yet taken hold. Yet, Nietzsche didn't leave us hopeless. His philosophy challenges us to become creators of meaning ourselves, to stand tall in the void, and build a new moral order from our own will. It won't be easy. It demands courage, honesty, and relentless self-overcoming. But it is possible, and it is necessary. Because if we don't rise to this challenge, the abyss will consume us all. Rates of despair and disconnection are rising, and a deep crisis of purpose is unfolding right before our eyes. This is exactly the world Nietzsche warned us about. But he didn't just predict doom. He offered a path forward. He didn't want us to surrender to nihilism, to give up and drift into meaninglessness. Instead, he urged us to take responsibility, to become the architects of our own meaning. If God is dead, then it falls to us to build a new morality, one not handed down from the sky, but forged through our own struggles, choices, and experiences. This is not a burden. It's a profound opportunity to rise above despair and craft a purpose that is truly ours. So what does this mean for you? Whether you believe in God or not, Nietzsche's warning applies to everyone. You can either retreat into the comfort of old beliefs without questioning them, or you can stand face to face with the abyss, accept that life has no inherent meaning, and start creating your own. Ignoring the question isn't an option. At some point, everyone must confront the emptiness, the fact that life doesn't come with a pre-written script or a guaranteed purpose. The real test is what you do next. Will you let the crushing weight of meaninglessness overwhelm you? Or will you, as nature urges, rise beyond it? Will you grow stronger, create boldly, and define your own existence? Because in the end, God is dead is not merely a statement about religion. It's a challenge, a call to action, a demand that you take full control of your own destiny, your beliefs, your morality, your purpose. Now the question is yours to answer. Will you face the terrifying freedom Nietzsche spoke of? Will you accept the responsibility to craft your own path? Or will you fall into the abyss of nihilism, allowing others to dictate what you should believe, how you should live, and what you should value? If this video made you pause, made you think, don't let the journey end here. Hit the like button to support deep, thought-provoking content like this. Subscribe for more mind-expanding ideas that challenge the way you see the world. And I want to hear from you. What does God is dead mean to you? Is it a warning, an opportunity, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below.